Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So it's the weekend true crime special, and so today we're doing a very different story. This story is based in Orlando. Now, as we all know, Orlando is a city of theme parks and an amazing entertainment life with nightclubs. It's a hub of tourists as well. This story is about Sasha Samsudean. She was a 27-year-old, very ambitious young woman, and she wanted to live in Orlando because she got a really good job offer there. So as soon as Sasha graduated from the University of Florida, she ended up with an amazing job as a social media manager at Pearson firm, which was based in Orlando. And she also wanted to promote apartment complexes, so she was working for TV. It's called 406 Apartment TV, high-end apartments to people on TV. She was quite good at it, and so initially she had a part-time job, but later on Pearson hired her as like a full-time employee, and she was working in the marketing department. And after a few months, she basically became like a director of the operation services because she was exceptionally good. She was witty and she was smart, and everyone liked her. And she had a very lively, sweet personality, and she was very friendly and outgoing, and everybody loved her. She was the life of the party, that they said, and all her friends and her neighbors, nobody said anything bad about her. So but yeah, I mean, she was quite driven and ambitious as well. That's why she moved to Orlando, and she was looking for a place here. So Sasha ended up renting out like this amazing apartment in this amazing upscale North Orange County area in Orlando, which is famous for upscale apartments. Now this apartment complex was as good as the ones that she used to sell on TV. Like, this one had an amazing pool, a gym, landscape gardens, state-of-the-art security systems, surveillance cameras all around, and like even a night guard duty. So the security system was so high-tech that if she had to actually enter her apartment complex, she first needed a key fob, and that key fob will let her enter through the front door. Then if she wants to enter inside her apartment, there was a digital code. So the digital code is like, it's only accessible through the digital code, and only the apartment owner or the person who's renting out the apartment will have it. And so this is quite a secure system, right? Because no one else can enter your house, and you don't need keys. You just need a digital. So Sasha was thrilled to have her own place, and she felt quite safe in this neighborhood as well. But apparently, or so she thought. But apparently on Friday, October 16, 2015, so this was like, this place was known for soccer matches, and Sasha and her friends, they dressed up in purple and they were supporting the Lions team. And this was the last day of the soccer match. So they all went to watch the match, and Lions won, so they wanted to celebrate. So they went out to this place called Sidebar, where they had a lot of drinks, and then they ended up going to this place called Attic, which is like a very famous dance club in Orlando. And so they had a good time, they were partying there. 12:30 a.m. Sasha felt like, she had, so she wanted to go home. So she told her friend Anthony that she was leaving and she was going back to her apartment. That's the last Anthony saw of her. And the next day, Anthony was supposed to meet Sasha for breakfast, but she didn't show up. So he didn't find it anything alarming, because she was really drunk last night, and he thought that maybe she was just hungover and she needed to rest. So he thought that he would text her later and they could meet up. So texting and calling her later, but she never replied, and so he ended up calling two of her close friends, Katie and Megan. Now Katie and Megan had not heard from her either, and they were also a little bit worried and skeptical that why she's not responded as yet, because Sasha was not the sort of person who wouldn't respond to texts and calls. She was quite reliable. Sasha was invited to a baby shower the same day, and they should check up on her. So what they did was three of them, they started calling her, and they started texting her, and then after a few hours, when she did not respond at all, they ended up going to her apartment complex and sneaked in from the front door. Now when they went to the parking garage area, this baby shower gift at the back seat. So that was really strange. First they went to her apartment, and they knocked on her apartment door. So they knocked quite a few times, but they didn't get any reply. So now the situation was turning a little bit alarming, and so Anthony decided to call the hospitals and some police stations to find out if something had happened to her, like maybe she ran into an accident the previous night. But they didn't they didn't find anything there. There was no girl from Sasha's description in any hospital in that area or in any local police stations. So this was getting out of hand, and Anthony was now really worried, so he thought that he should call 911, the police. So as soon as they told the police Sasha, she's missing, they ended up coming to her apartment complex. Now as soon as they came there, they were stopped by the security guards over there, and then the security guards got to know about the whole situation, and they quickly understood that they had to let the police in to her apartment. Now when the police arrived and they actually went inside Sasha's apartment, they couldn't find any signs of forced entry or any signs of violence or any crime scene. But what they noticed was that there was a comforter at the end of a master bedroom, and it was in a very strange shape, and then when they went close to that comforter, they saw dark brown hair coming out of the comforter and a hand protruded out. And that's where they found Sasha Samsudean's body. Now this was quite alarming, and now this was a crime scene, so they had to check every little detail of that room because that was just DNA evidence everywhere. So now she was badly beaten up, she was raped, sexually assaulted, and she was choked to death because she had signs on her chest and her neck. So now this body had to be examined by the medical examiner, and the entire room was a crime scene. So they would have to check every little detail of that room for any fingerprints or any DNA evidence that they could find. So what they did find was some fingerprints on the toilet seat of the washroom, and they also found some footprints of the size 9 all around her room carpet area. And they also found some prints on the nightstand. So as soon as they came out, Anthony and Katie and Megan, they knew that something was definitely wrong, and they knew that Sasha was gone. And this was a really sad moment for her friends and for her family when they found out about it. She was just 27, she was just starting her life, and she was such a sweet and bright young woman. So it was alarming for the neighbors as well, and when they found out about Sasha's death, they got really scared that there's some criminal looming around the apartment complex, and he could be hiding somewhere, he could be around, it could be someone they're acquainted with, or it could also be someone who's working over there. So they wanted to investigate this whole situation, so they basically started questioning the people Sasha knew very well. So the first person that they wanted to interview was the people that she was in contact with the night before. And so they wanted to ask everyone around. So the first person they had to ask was the security guard who was present at night, because she arrived late night. So the night guard must have seen her or must have let her in, right? So, but that person was out of duty, so they had to call him and ask him for an interview. Now that person's name was a 33-year-old guy called Stephen Michael Duxbury. Now, Stephen Michael Duxbury had an Army-Navy background, and he also had just joined the security team, vital security team, 5 months prior, and he had just worked there for 4 to 5 months in that apartment complex. So now, according to the security guard, he said that Sasha Samsudean did arrive at the apartment complex, but she arrived around 1:45 a.m. and she was accompanied by 2 other women, but she didn't have her purse, her phone, and her key fob, so it was difficult for her to get in. And then there was some other guy who knew her from the apartment complex area, who was he was living there. So he went in and Sasha followed, and he was talking to her, so they didn't find anything alarming, and those 2 girls left. So, and then he said that she went to her apartment complex and she was a little bit drunk and she didn't remember her code, so she asked me to follow her to the parking lot so she could get her key fob and get in. But after a few minutes, both of them, because there were surveillance cameras everywhere, we could see what they were doing. So they went inside, both of them, Sasha and Stephen, and then she he said that, you know, she went upstairs, she suddenly remembered her digital code and she went upstairs. She tried a few times and then he didn't see her, so she probably went inside her room. That's his story, right? So now this story had to be cross-checked, and so police officers had to interview other people who saw her that night. So they were like, the good thing is Orlando streets and Orlando area, and especially this club, Attic Dance Club, this was surrounded by surveillance cameras, and so they got a footage of the night, like that the previous night that she left, Friday night. And they saw Sasha Samsudean leaving the nightclub around like 1:45, and they also see her extremely like drunk, and they also saw two women, like they were kind of accompanying her, and they did drive together in the Uber. So now they had to find out who these two women were, because they were definitely not Katie and Megan, and they were not any of her friends. So they started, like, they found out information, they finally got in touch with those two women, and those two women were like complete strangers to Sasha. So they said that they were trying to book an Uber, and as soon as the Uber arrived, they saw Sasha, you know, extremely drunk, and she was trying to get in, like, into another cab, like car with some men, and they thought that, you know, she might actually get into trouble, so they tried to help her, and so they shared an Uber with her and actually dropped her to her apartment complex, which was an act of kindness, I feel. And so they really wanted to make sure that she enters the apartment complex, but she didn't have a purse and her phone and key fob. So they made sure the security guard let her in, and then she was safely inside the apartment. As soon as she went inside the apartment, then that's when they left. They were complete strangers, so they didn't have to stay back, and you know, they didn't even have her number. So now police officers, they had like literally reached a dead end. They didn't know who to suspect, because the security guard story checked in, because the girl said that this is exactly what had happened. You know, Sasha tried to get in, then this another guy came, and you know, he let her in, and the security guard also left and went inside the building. So security guard story checked out, surveillance cameras showed the same thing, and they didn't have extra footage of the apartment complex at that time, and they didn't have anybody to like pin it on, or like to check or cross-check the DNA as well. So now they started looking into Sasha's romantic interests, and they wanted to find out if it was like a crime of passion, you know. So they started investigating, and they found out about this guy who she was dating for a little while. So they called him in and they questioned him, and so his story checked out. He said that he was you know, working somewhere, and you know, he knew her for a long time, and they were really good friends, and they've been dating on and off for a long time. And he said that they talk regularly and they're good friends. But like when they cross-checked his DNA, it came out negative, and so they quickly ended that investigation and they let him go. Then there was another person. This person somehow had Sasha's iPad password, because he knew her from before, right? So he was on the password. So they went into her apartment complex. They found out, they got Sasha's iPad, and they got into the history of the iPad. Now the iPad had also messages from her mobile phone, because the night she died, they saw that she had messaged or texted someone named Ben, and she was texting him the whole night, and the last text was Ben around, it was like 5:12 a.m. and then after 16 minutes Ben had replied, you know, but then they didn't get another reply from her. So that's probably the time when she was attacked and killed, and so they had like a lead. So they called Ben, and now Ben was someone who knew her from a long time. He knew her from high school. They had dated during the university years, and he knew her very well. And he said, yeah, I would talk to her every single day, and you know, we chat, and we did chat that night, and I did reply to her. So he seemed really concerned, and then they crossed his DNA. But you know, it came out negative, so they closed the investigation on that side. But the good thing was, now they had investigated these two guys who told them about Sasha. Now they knew the timeline when she was attacked and what had happened. So now all they had to do was go back, get the apartment complex surveillance cameras, and find out more, like who actually visited her or who actually tried to enter her apartment. Now another theory was that maybe because Sasha couldn't get into her apartment, there was something wrong with her digital lock, and because of that it was faulty, and entered and committed a crime. So we had to find out who it was. Finally, the police officers, they could access the security cameras, and what they saw was like extremely terrifying, especially for people who lived there. So now what they saw was that Sasha Samsudean actually entered the apartment complex around 1:45 a.m. and she was accompanied by two women. And then the same story that the security guard said, that this guy entered and she entered after him. And then she's seen like climbing a flight of stairs and up and down, and she's trying to run away from the security guard because the security guard is coming after her, and she thought that he might kick her out because she didn't have the key fob and she didn't remember the digital code. So then she's seen coming back to the security guard, asking him to go to the parking garage. They go to the parking garage, they come back around 2 or 6 a.m. and then she's actually going to her apartment, and then she tries to figure out the digital code and everything. Saw security footage of around 6:36 a.m. when the security guard Stephen Duxbury is seen carrying trash bags out from the apartment complex, and that is really strange because security guard is not supposed to do all the cleaning work. And since Stephen Duxbury said that his duty was till 6 a.m., why would you stay back for like 40 minutes and like then take out the trash bag? It's just really strange. And then he went out, came again, took his belongings and went out around 6:40 a.m. So now they called him back for questioning. They asked Stephen Duxbury, like, what were you doing with these trash bags? And what he said that he just wanted the cleaners a little bit. So, he took out the trash. And he also said that he was filing a report from 6 a.m. to 6:40 a.m., which was very strange. Like, what kind of report are you filing for 40 minutes? Like, you're not an executive, you're just a security guard. And one more important thing was that from 5:13 a.m. to like 6:13 a.m., there's no activity of the security guard. Like, he's not seen anywhere in the building complex. He's not doing anything. Like, he's not taking out any key fobs. And there's no surveillance of no CCTV footage at all. So now that makes you wonder, like, this was the last person who saw Sasha enter the apartment on 3rd floor. And he was the only one who knew she was drunk, and she was having difficulty entering the apartment complex. And he was the only one present during this whole situation when she was attacked and killed. So he's like their prime suspect now, right? Because it just checks out the whole timeline, right? Like, he was there and he was there for an hour and then he left late with trash bags. So it's very strange. And then one more important thing about Sasha's apartment was that it smells of bleach, right? Like, when the police officers entered, someone had actually cleaned up, but they didn't clean up properly because there were footprints everywhere, fingerprints were found on the toilet seat. So someone tried to use Sasha's cleaning stuff to clean up the place so that it doesn't look like a murder scene. And so because of that, some of the stuff could be in those trash bags, right? So now again they called him for proper questioning, and this time around Stephen's story is like he had to also come back for a polygraph test. Did you ever like get arrested, or did you have any like criminal charge? So he said, yeah, I did. I had a criminal charge because this girl, she wrongfully accused me of sexually assaulting her, and I just said I was guilty because I felt that her reputation was at stake and she was mentally unstable. She was abused by her previous boyfriends and her uncle, and so she was very, very mentally unstable, and she was delusional, and so she his best friend's sister. So she made up this whole story, and that girl's mother wanted to file a report against him, and so she did, and he just said that, okay, you know what, I did it, and I'm really sorry, and because he just wanted to move on. But that's actually a lie, because the real story is, and when they actually corroborated the whole story, that this girl that he attacked previously was his best friend's sister, and she was babysitting him and his siblings, and he actually tried to kiss her and sexually assault her and even choke her the same way that Sasha was choked. Now, previously, medical examiner had examined the Sasha Samsudean's body, and they had found a lot of fingerprints and DNA evidence on her chest and her neck, and she had like defensive wounds. Like, this girl had actually tried to attack her attacker back, and she had fought for her life. So this guy, Stephen Duxbury, actually had a lot of marks on his arms, and So they were, so again, the person asked him, the polygraph woman, she asked him that why did you have so many marks, when you were first questioned? And he said, oh, I have this nervous disease where I get this skin, allergy and irritation, and I get all these marks. And that was really strange. Like, why? What kind of a nervous breakdown you have that you get like skin allergies and stuff? And then so I started asking him about his medical history, and he said that he had an appendectomy, and he had like some kidney stone issue as well, and whooping cough, and some headaches and migraines. Now this person, when they started talking to him, they realized that this guy was a little bit delusional as well, and he had this superiority complex that he was like, he had served in the Navy, and he was supposed to follow all the rules, and he also said that he wasn't very happy with the security guard duty because there were a lot of drunks coming in late at night, and he had to like deal with them, and he had a lot of fights with them, and he had to face a lot of harassment by the tenants living there, the apartment complex. And he also said a lot of people used to swim late night in the pool, and he didn't like that. So he was acting like he was very morally like good, and he wanted to make everything right, and he was a good guy. But I think it was just an act, because clearly, like, he had a history, he had a very bad criminal history, and he had attacked someone, and then he actually went to prison for that, for attacking a woman. So this was very strange, and so then they started checking his DNA, and his DNA evidence actually, when they corroborated, it came out a match. So he was actually the person who committed the crime. So then I asked him again, like, did you actually kill her, and did you do anything to her? And he said, no, I didn't enter her apartment, I didn't do anything to her. So now again they had to check his phone, and when they checked his phone, they found out that he had actually tried to access her apartment, third floor apartment, digital code. Now, there's a digital code which can be matched through the phone, so he tried to access that code a few times because he didn't know the code, right? And somehow he got it right, and he entered the apartment complex, and he, I think that was probably 5:13 a.m. because 5:12 Sasha texted Ben, and after that she didn't even complete the sentence on her text. So he probably attacked her, raped her, and then choked her to death. And this was an act of violence, this was a senseless act of crime. And this is a person, and this act is committed by a person who's supposed to protect you. He's like the night guard. He's supposed to protect you against the criminals. And he's actually the one you need protection from. He's the monster in the building. So when the other people in the apartment complex, they found out about this, they were horrified. They were like, oh my God, like, they were actually around a criminal. This could have happened to any of those people, right? Any of those girls living there. And they felt really sorry for Sasha and how she got killed. Now Sasha's family was really, really angry, and they wanted to sue the Vital company, the security company first, and they also wanted to, they wanted justice for their daughter. So they sued the Vital security company, and they also sued the company who made the locks, which is the quick set lock. So the company said that it was just that, Sasha Samsudean's apartment door digital code was just faulty, and that's the reason he could have easily entered. Otherwise, it's impossible for this person to enter her apartment. And so that was one reason they gave. But later on in 2016, they actually did change the digital code system, and they came up with a new system because a lot of people complained. Security system, now the security system had to be sued because they actually hired this guy who had a criminal past. So Sasha's parents said that, why didn't you check his his details, and didn't you know he had a criminal record? So they said that his FBI report was quite normal, and they thought that he was all right, and so they didn't really need to cross check again. So they actually made a mistake because they were supposed to know about his criminal history, and they were supposed to not hire him as a guard, I feel. Later on, there was a 7-day trial on Stephen Duxbury, and since the DNA came out positive, the trial was not for too long, and finally the verdict came out, and he was given a life sentence without parole. Of course, the judge said that this is the person who's supposed to protect you, and he's committing a huge crime, and now everybody's scared of the security guard system because if the person who's supposed to protect you ends up killing you, then what do? You're not safe in your own apartment. It's like a story where you feel sad for Sasha Samsudean, because she was a young, bright woman just starting her career, and she had hopes for a bright future, and her life was just taken away. The victim deserves justice. With that note, we will end tonight's case. For next week, I'll be coming up with another true crime story. So please do like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Take care. Goodbye.